One gear, wet tyres in the dry, no brakes, constantly accelerating and winning the race from last to first. These are the 5 challenges in 5 laps that I'm going to be doing to try and beat the 0% AI difficulty in this challenge. And trust me, this was unbelievably difficult. And it's now time for my very first attempt at this challenge. So as I've already said, my lap 1 challenge was only using 1 gear and I chose 6th and everything was going well even off of the start line until this happened. Yeah, this wasn't ideal, however of course I wasn't going to give up after just 1 attempt, and not too long after this I was starting another race. Off the line, unsurprisingly, I got absolutely cooked because the acceleration in 6th gear isn't exactly ideal. However, into turn 1 I made an excellent dive bomb and I was momentarily into 10th place. Sadly, Yuki Tsunoda and eventually Pierre Gasly made their way past me, but as you can see, after this I was on an absolute charge through the field, making overtakes left, right and centre. By the way, if you are wondering why this footage is sped up, don't worry because you're about to find out very soon. And as you can see, we are now on the back of Max Verstappen and Lando Norris, and I hadn't even got into the final sector yet. And I managed to overtake both of these 2 drivers going through the winding corners, and this start had been unbelievable, or at least I thought that it had. And well, the carnage didn't exactly stop there. Anyway, it's now time for the main attempt of this video, and at the end of this race we are going to actually be able to see if I complete this challenge. As the 5 lights went out, I had an absolutely brilliant reaction time and got fantastic traction off the line, which instantly gained me 2 places. And then on the shift up to 6th gear, I got past Kevin Magnussen, and it was now time for the most crucial corner in this entire race. And into turn 1, I absolutely sent out the inside of 8 cars, which brought me from 17th to 9th, and on the exit I thought that I would lose places. However, I managed to hold my own, even with Pierre Gasly trying to get past me going up to Eau Rouge. And luckily for me, after this I pushed him and Carlos Sainz off the racing line, which really slowed them down, and this was ideal because I could not reach the usual speed required for even shifting into 8th gear along the Kemmel Straight. So fortunately for me, I was able to maintain position. It's now time for the off-board shot, and as you can see, I very quickly made 3 risky overtakes going through Le Combe, and then a switchback on Lando Norris, which meant that I was now already into P5. Now it's time for the very long right-hander of turn 10, whose corner name I cannot pronounce, but that's irrelevant because I've just made a double overtake around both of the Mercedes cars. And after only 10 corners, I was now 1.5 seconds off the lead of this race, living in 6th gear. Now it's time to get past Max Verstappen, and after a better exit than him going out of no-name corner, coming into P1, I was just behind him. Through this flat-out corner, I absolutely sent it out the inside of him, almost lost the car on the apex, but I did have to take risks, and now just a few seconds later, I'd got up the inside of Lando Norris, and I was now into the lead of the race. This was just brilliant, and I now had a new priority, which was getting as much of a gap to the lead of the race before the end of this lap. And I got extremely lucky when I could see in my rear view mirror that going through the winding turns, which the AI are really slow at the best of times, Lando and Max were side by side, and this was quite literally going to gain me seconds. And by the exit of those corners, I had already built a gap that was almost 4 seconds wide. And the reason that this is so important is because at the end of this lap, I will be pitting for the extreme wet tyres. Yep, I'm about to do a full lap trying to overtake the slowest AI in the F1 24 game on wet tyres, which is going to be very interesting. Anyway, it's now time for my pit stop onto wet tyres, and this was all pretty standard, so I'm not going to waste your time with it. I had an optimal turn in and I thought that I was going to comfortably come out in front of Logan Sargent, but this would not be the case. Somehow, even by ignoring the pit exit white line, I was switched back by the lowest difficulty worst driver in the entirety of the F1 game, which is just unbelievable. However, I would not let this hold me back, and after a far superior run going through Eau Rouge compared to the ex-Williams driver, I was able to fly past him using all 8 gears, DRS and on wet tyres. It's now time for Le Combe, and these 3 corners were super crucial for me because going through these, even on the wet tyres, I'm way faster than these drivers. Into turn 7, I broke super late and dove up the inside of Kevin Magnussen, and next up was Zhou Guanyu, and I got around the outside of him going through turn 9, and I was already up into 17th place. Next up was turn 10, and I tactically got Daniel Ricciardo to defend the inside line into this very long corner, which allowed me to get around the outside of him along with Alex Albon. And my overtakes just kept on coming thick and fast, and after this, I got up the inside of Valtteri Bottas into no-name corner. This brought me up to 14th, but I could not rest as there was a job to be done with Esteban Ocon up next coming into put on. Going into this corner, I did want to go up the inside of Esteban, but the wiser decision was to make the move around the outside with Nico Hülkenberg up next. Coming into turn 13, I waited patiently behind the German, and this worked out brilliantly, and I got around the outside of Nico Hülkenberg, and through turn 14, I got around the outside of Pierre Gasly. Next up was Yuki Tsunoda, and into turn 15, this was a very simple overtake, and after this, I was now into P10. And I just want to have another look at these three corners, because this was just excellent. I mean, doing this on dry tyres against the 0% AI would be impressive in itself. So to make 3 overtakes in 3 corners, with 2 being consecutively around the outside, was just invaluable to me because it helped me gain more time to the lead of the race. However, now I did have to come back into the pits to get onto the soft tyres. That all went perfectly, and it's now time for the lap of absolutely zero braking, and this was going to be super difficult. On the exit of the pit lane, thankfully I avoided the barrier, and I didn't even track extend over the white line, which was ideal, as I definitely would get a penalty if I were to get another track extending warning. Anyway, as you can see, I am a long way behind 19th, which is not a surprise, so we'll quickly speed through this lap apart from every braking corner, because trust me, this was not easy. In Telecom, you don't actually have to take off a lot of speed to take the corner well, so a short lift and coast with a bit of running along the grass was sufficient to make me take the corner well. The next braking corner was turn 10, and I pretty much did the same thing but just for longer, and honestly, in terms of braking, this was pretty much it for this lap apart from the bus stop chicane, which we'll come up to in around about a minute. And this is because almost all of the corners on this track are medium speed, so not braking is only slightly less optimal if I wanted to gain any more time. Anyway, it's now time to start making overtakes, and first up was once again Logan Sargent. Leaving Stavolo, I had a way better exit than him, and I managed to make the move. This was super crucial because from this point onwards, I will obviously not be making any more pit stops, so every overtake is a permanent move for position. Next up was Kevin Magnussen, and I replicated a move made by Max Verstappen a decade ago by overtaking around the outside of Blanchimont, but it was now time for the hardest corner to do without braking on this entire track. Coming into the bus stop chicane, I started lifting and coasting really early, and then I had to weave around like crazy to reduce my speed, and I just about made the corner. Thankfully, that was lap 3 done. Unfortunately, I had given up the position to Kevin Magnussen, but I knew that I would get that back as soon as possible. So my lap 4 challenge is that I'm going to be accelerating throughout the entirety of this lap, and this includes whilst I'm braking. This is going to make braking and traction extremely difficult, but not into turn 1, as I was able to make 2 overtakes, but unfortunately on the exit, Zhou Guanyu got back past me. However, I was not going to let him stay ahead of me forever, and as you can see from this very nice camera angle, going up Eau Rouge, I flew past the Sauber driver, and I was now into P17. Hello, just a reminder, please subscribe, so I'm now under 1,000 away from 20,000 subscribers. Thank you so much, and back to the video. Next up was Lecom, and I found it pretty easy to accelerate and brake through there, and through turn 8, I made my way around the outside of Daniel Ricciardo. And then after this, I simply forced my way up the inside of Alex Albon, which was a bit rude, but the game is the game. It is now time for turn 10, and you can see how difficult this was for me because of how far I ran deep into this corner, but it did not matter because I still managed to get past Esteban Ocon. And then very quickly after this, I made a move up the inside of Valtteri Bottas, going into No Name Corner. Honestly, this lap had just started fantastically, and my aim for the end of this lap was to get into the top 10 of the race with 1 lap to go all out for the win. Anyway, as you can see, after this, I flew past Nico Hülkenberg after a very good pull on, and Pierre Gasly was up next. So I know that this is going to sound ridiculous, but going into turn 13, I genuinely did not mean to overtake Pierre Gasly, but I just outbroke myself and got very fortunate. After this was Yuki Tsunoda, and I won't lie, this was a very standard overtake around the outside, and I was now into 10th place, which was brilliant, but my aim was to be in the top 10, not 10th, and Lance Stroll was up next. Fortunately for me, I managed to gain a lot of time on the run up to the bus stop chicane going through Blanchimont, and into these 2 corners, I absolutely sent it up the inside of the Canadian, and I was now inside of the top 10. This was it. Everything had come down to the final lap, and the challenge for lap 5 was simple. I had to win the race. And lap 5 started excellently because I somehow managed to set the fastest lap of the race whilst I had been accelerating throughout the entirety, so this was super motivating. Coming into turn 1, I wanted to go around the outside of Carlos Sainz, but I had to back out of it as I almost collided with his rear left tyre. This was not ideal as I needed to make every single corner count on this lap, especially as I could already see Max Verstappen well down the Kemmel Straight. Anyway, luckily for me, I had a much better run going up Eau Rouge than the Spaniard, and after getting past him by benefiting from slipstream off of Sergio Perez, I was on a mission, and in Telecom, I needed to keep making moves. I sent it up the inside of the ex-Red Bull driver, and then I got super lucky by just about managing to keep the car on the racetrack, and on the exit, this got me past Oscar Piastri and soon after, Fernando Alonso. I was now into the top 5 of this Grand Prix and a few seconds behind George Russell in 4th. Going through turn 10 I had a pretty good run, and after this I continually gained time all the way up until turn 13, where I had now just gone to the back of the Mercedes driver. And these two winding corners were just super crucial. I managed to get up the inside of George Russell, around the outside of Lewis Hamilton, and around the outside of Lando Norris. I was now into 2nd with 1 sector to go. The gap to Max Verstappen, exactly 3 seconds. Through Stavolo I gained 2 of these seconds, but the rest of this track, apart from the bus stop chicane, is all a straight, and on the final lap the AI dump all of their batteries, so I have to do the exact same thing. And this was working perfectly. I was constantly gaining time, even though you can quite literally see me almost spinning the car under zero pressure. Everything had come down to this, and I had to make a move into the bus stop chicane from over half a second back, and this would not be easy. I had done it. 5 laps, 5 challenges against the 0% AI difficulty from last to first. Job done. Thank you all so much for watching. Once again, please subscribe and I will see you all next week.